people.
Yeah.
So yes, okay. Yeah, I mean, I can share more, but I don't understand all. The other thing I wanted to say is that the more I found that there's really a few projects that are with this idea of metabolism. And especially the Capital Institute. Actually, you see what it is, yes, right? What is
Capital
it?
Institute by John Fullerton, who is like the founder of the paper writer of the Regenerative Economics 2014.
Yes, exactly. So actually, what they say is very much similar to all the idea of dynamic energy budget. Even if, so, and the more, and I see other things. So I mean, for me, it was very much about interdisciplinary collaboration and having arts and artists, being into the knowledge production in the same, like others, not having artists like doing just a nice image or entertainment. But that's very close to what they do. And I also met another guy in Kernel who is from long tail finance, who is now in this cohort, and he's doing something more about knowledge. Forgot the name. Sorry, I can find it in 2 minutes. Anyway, so there's a few initiatives that are similar.
What do you remember his name from
Yes,
LTS?
yes, I will find it right.
Okay, maybe he's the gardener.
Yes, he's yes, maybe actually yes. I wanted to tell you. Here, he's a South American. So he started something called I can share it, floristic.
Yeah, it's
Well,
Parachi.
yes, probably.
Okay.
Yes, it's about all these digital gardeners.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's Pedro Paracha. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, and then basically he's also into this, right? Into
Yes, I mean, what his project is a bit different, but it's about um, it's about regenerative sense making. Yes, it's about sense making.
yeah.
All
Okay.
these things. And
that's great. Like the whole regenerative sense making. Like we should definitely invite
yes,
them and exchange.
and to me, I would connect this to what I heard from um, um, the kernel from Andy about signature economy, about valuing sense making instead of valuing ownership, and this to me in dynamic energy budget is the idea of connection, of valuing connection, and actually you need connection to make sense. I mean, or making sense is it's the same, and so. I would be more interested the dynamic energy budget connect with all these things. We're not going to. I don't have the idea of creating the Capital Institute now. No, yes,
So I don't know if you are in the agenda. I'll share the link, but I definitely took notes. Makes total sense. I mean, I can definitely see how, if you're up for it, like we could have these sessions with each of them invited or more of them invited here if you want, or kernel or both. I don't know, however you want to make it happen. I can see. I don't know what do others think or what do you want to add to it, but definitely sounds like a good connection. And I mean, this whole regenerative workflows and the research into it, I find super interesting, super useful.
Okay, so can I invite Dhruv to one of our meetings? Would it be right for you as a first
Sure.
step, or maybe and then I would like also, yes, to connect also with the others, but maybe step by step, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. So if you I also added if you can share what he wrote, I think that was
Yeah.
helpful. That we and then but then again as always with people's energy budget, I just have to be upfront or more upfront. That's what I realized. Like I find this these topics actually every every single topic that we have in Omega I find extremely stimulating and actually profoundly important. Token engineering or in anything that I want to do, I would love to actually have this research accompany whatever we're doing. Uh, but whatever we're doing is so much.
Talk about you, like it's the main tension here. We are yes, it's super interesting. We are bringing in so many topics. Like I
Mm,
was in love with dynamic energy budget. I was like, yes, let's research on this. But then when we come to practice, it's like we need really to be self-aware of what we are doing here. Because if not, this self-sovereign space is falling down on us. Like it is
mm,
this big gap between the theoretical and academic world and the practice with free space or even our
mm,
free practice lives. So yeah, that would be like the main thing. How do we really apply this? Because we didn't do that with the energy budget at the end of the day. Then when we came to this distribution, it was more like the previous fundamental things we were thinking about. So we didn't did applied research, right? So that's my point.
I would just, hello, I'd like to add that I've been thinking also about this, and I'm also thinking about like the workspace that I'm involved in, and thinking about Web3, and maybe there's some kind of way of putting some kind of event there. I don't know if it should be every month or every week is maybe a bit too ambitious.
mhm,
But maybe a monthly kind of moment where it's also open to a public, which is not only on Discord, so that it kind of allows for a
yeah.
moment of like a public space. I have a little group which I kind
Mhm,
of built it, but it's never been activated on Meetup, and I've been thinking about creating different channels and trying to find also connections to kind of persons that are not so much into Discord. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about, that I would like to maybe see Omega also, maybe an evening of Omega, but streamed within the gallery setting. And I don't know if someone will show
mhm,
up, but if there's a few people or residents that are connecting to this, that's
mhm,
kind of what I could bring to the table here. And I don't know if it would help the process, but maybe it could help also to have a moment that we say, ah, yeah, this month on this day there is this happening, and I don't know where of what to stream it with, and yeah, this is kind of like where I'm at.
mhm. And Rescosh, the gallery was in
That's in Brussels.
Brussels, yes.
Um, oh, I'm sure I can find a partner also, like a nice institution or something like that.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure you talked about a company. What I'm not sure I understood the first what you were saying. That it's a lot of work and we don't have a space.
No, no, no. It's basically, or I don't know, like basically saying, definitely, if you take the lead, right, and if it doesn't take too much time, like if it is okay, this is an evening and we want to discuss this, come and basically represent or bring point of views from token engineering community, etc. Like these things, I believe, can be done, definitely. And what Steph brought in was to say, hey, and actually I could offer
space.
more or less helping scheduling and having these Omega evenings, for example, at his gallery, right? So that basically we have a rhythm, right? We know, okay, this is going to happen in November. Steph is going to take care of physical location if anyone wants to join, but he definitely will bring local people who are interested in Web3 and these type of
I hope
discourse.
so, because from my point of view, it's been extremely difficult in finding persons that are interested in this because, for example, I tried to invite one of the current residents, and like already for her to work with Discord interfaces, it's like it's too abstract, and that's kind
But
of what
then,
I'm thinking about. Does it make
mm,
sense to build an event? I would like to do it. That's actually what I'm going to do. And then maybe once it starts to take off, that I can kind of invite Omega as a guest. That's kind of how I'm seeing it. Like, I cannot guarantee you a troop of people that will be sitting here waiting to hear about like what Omega is doing. But I could provide like an
yeah,
ongoing research space where this thing can develop with a physical location. That's kind of what I can provide.
okay. Oh,
Sounds
what
great.
if we do this? You just propose, as in like be as concrete as you can, John. Like because obviously content is coming from you. You have the connections, and also you have the let's say vision for like at least how dynamic energy budget is going to play into this whole regeneration of collaboration work, sense making, and so on. And you're connecting with these people. I mean, we
Yes.
can invite them to Omega chat, and maybe it's good for getting to know what they have in mind. But then from then, the next step would be okay. Maybe there is more collaboration work, research going on, and there are some insights. And then you want to present those insights somehow. And that could be an option where Steph helps stream it at the very least, and we have good recordings. I don't know, like yeah.
I mean, yes, but we, of
If you
course,
want to do something with it, definitely do go for it. If we can provide something from token engineering commons, um, uh, like technical, how does it play into token economies, etc. Certainly.
yeah. So it's
Yeah,
just
it's
that,
just the bandwidth, like having so
yeah,
many
yeah.
other projects, every one of us.
Yeah.
But I believe like the interest is definitely there,
Okay,
right?
but let's go small step by small step.
Yeah.
And it's just that when they talk to me, I don't understand everything. So yeah,
Okay, so basically you're saying, okay, let them come here
yeah,
because then basically there will be enough translations and enough people with technical
exactly.
background. Okay, no, definitely open door.
Okay.
Whenever
So
you want,
maybe,
just
oh, so sorry, I interrupt you. I interrupted you.
no, I just wanted to say, just give a heads up a week before or so if you can. Then should be no problem at all. I mean,
Okay.
having guests who are active and especially from Kernel is fantastic. This is great exchange.
Okay, so maybe I would suggest that not next Wednesday because I'm going to Milano for an exhibition and I hope to get people from Omega also. I need to talk to Steph also. Uh, um, and but the following Wednesday, I'm going to invite Pedro and Dhruv together. They are
Okay.
both from Kernel, so that's and then if it's okay with you, and then we can talk about this and the polygon thing.
Okay, so 26th, basically.
Yes, of October.
Is it okay for others?
Yeah, Letty?
Yes, it is.
Perfect. Session on this. Great. Good. Noted.
Merci.
Perfect. No, thank you for making these connections.
Merci.
Okay, cool. Good. Then we have 2 topics then. And the other one I wanted to just freshen up was a course in sovereignty. If you remember, that was basically saying, okay, hey, let's focus. or let's find the commonality between these patterns or principles that we uncovered when we had this first focus group, and also in our experience being in this space for some time. I don't know how new to some of you that crypto aspect was, but even for a computer scientist who is into peer-to-peer, the cypherpunk manifesto and basically the cipher or crypto roots. And from my view, that's really the game changer, basically, not so much the peer-to-peer part. That really is something new, or that really is something that requires also learning, and that boils down to emancipation, not just learning, but it's really being, emancipated as, from your role as passive consumer, as even passive citizens that delegate their votes, but somehow we don't, we still keep doing that. Although with this technology we have at least the power of direct participation, but it kind of lacks, yes, because it is highly technical and it is still very hard to get on this new technology.
Yeah, sometimes it leads us to the actual problems we are trying to come out from. So it's this paradox, right? We are trying to use these new systems and these new crypto primitives to achieve some kind of outcomes. And at the same time, we are applying, as within the vacuum was sharing so much knowledge, and sometimes doing that, being overthinking and being super technical, that is in itself like taking us far away from the actual things we're trying to do. So this paradox is always there, in my view, always.
So, okay, I'm trying to right. So you say basically it's a paradox.
Yeah, it's a paradox.
As in it liberates, but it's actually it
Maybe
shackles.
it's too technical for us. Not as women, but saying when you speak about emancipation, I think about women, right? And women, the space women are in here, and what do we do as women as well? And then I feel you mentioning like this is too technical, and then if we as women want to value the qualities and the fundamental things we bring to the table in humanity, maybe those have been undervalued. And we're trying to do that in a system that is even more technical and sometimes like far away from nature and the fundamental things we as humans value. So I feel like this huge paradox.
So I'm just going with asking around what self-sovereignty or what it means, what how you came across it, and then also like what how I and Letty shared like what you see, what is the crux of it, like if more of you would share, that would be fantastic. And I'm just writing down. And the goal would be to make this round and get more insights from each one of us about what is self-sovereignty. And it can be from technical, but also it can be just the word itself, what it means to you.
I mean, to me, each time I hear this word in the Web3 community, I don't understand. For me, it's a continuity of this ultra individualistic society that actually is weakening individuals so they don't make the revolution against the few that hold the financial power.
So you say basically it is dividing more and more, and hence
it is. So this is so I think that it's a paradox, as Letty was saying, that it's really a paradox about this idea that you carry on your individual shoulders everything. So it means there's no space for caring for each other, for supporting each other, while the reality of life is that people do need each other. So for me, I cannot understand it yet. I mean, I hear it always presented as a progressive idea in the Web3 community, and for me, the neoliberal idea that is so dangerous.
Yeah.
So I have difficulties with it. And this amazing guy I met online this afternoon.
my internet, how do you call it, connection?
Kinesthetic sovereignty, like this guy who is working, who unfortunately died, and I was so sad. But like 10 years ago, he was presenting about derivative and dance. And okay, I don't want to speak too much now because it's really something that I'm digging into it, using dance to talk about that, about the freedom to move. But I'll share more later. But anyway, so when I hear about kinesthetic sovereignty, it's also something about,
Nice.
I mean,
Please
I need
share.
yes, I shared one article from the MIT about
cool.
precarious dance, a derivative sociality, but he has written other, I mean, he's a researcher, so he was a researcher. Very,
Cool.
very interesting. I mean, you're going to love it, I think.
I already love kinesthetic sovereignty. Freedom to move.
Okay, so freedom to move. Okay, I tell you the workshop proposal I'm writing this day, and I'm happy to come and do it in Brussels also. It's about freedom to move, dance unchained. I don't know if you...
Unchained.
Yes.
I love it. Cool, please share.
It's about blockchain. Okay, yeah, I'm going to okay, anyway. We're going to have an Imaginarium meeting tomorrow, and I will share.
Oh, wonderful.
And Steph, it would be great if you could join. And
when are your imaginary meetings?
Tomorrow and afternoon.
In the afternoon or in the evening?
No, like 6:30 or 7. I don't know what Satori.
Yeah, I cannot, and I'm doing an evening course to get a graduate in programmation in 4 years from now. So tomorrow
A bit
evening I
before.
cannot.
At what time do you do your course?
I have a meeting there at 7:15, but before I need to clean the room for
Okay,
my
okay.
B&B guests.
Okay. I'll send you information.
Okay, yeah, please keep me updated.
So anyway, so I would love to hear from the others why this idea of self-sovereignty is a progressive idea in Web3. I don't get it right yet, and maybe never. I don't know.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's raining a lot here. So yeah, self-sovereignty. Well, yes, different angles to it. Like from political perspective, it's related to know that the state is something that we invented. Is not is not for real. The same with the economic systems. It's just technologies and systems that we apply. And to be aware of that, it's like going into the path for self-sovereignty. But I think at the at the core of it is there to be able to be a kid again, to be a children again. That like you can wake up in the morning and say what I'm gonna do it and be able to do it, and from that you get the best results from a person, not to lock them in some little boxes of
Yeah.
doings and stuff. And if you want to be, like real self-sovereignty, you have to be a kid. You have to reunite, like to gather the conditions for enable yourself to be a kid again. And then you know many things change from that. It's complicated for everybody because we are all trapped in this system, extracting system, and time extracting most of all. And we don't have time to do what we really feel to do. And we lost contact with that, and then the slavery starts just right away. So yeah, from my perspective, self-sovereignty is to be able to wake up in the morning and say, I'm gonna make pancakes and I'm going to enjoy that like a lot. And and
Yeah.
and after that, I'm gonna make a song, or I'm gonna make some cool stuff. I don't know. Well, it has to do with that for me.
It reminds me of to do is to be.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then how I always say I forgot how to be.
And
Because as
and
a child you don't you know right,
yeah,
but you get educated into some form of social norms and so on, and that very well takes away
and
that
it's not about to
natural.
take that away or just say no, that doesn't work. That took us here. But at the same time, oh my god. Yeah, yeah. I think that it's not about the system. We have this technology now, and this technology is just a tool to try to make things more like to achieve more transparency and all of that, and that's great. But what we need is to globally, like to try to achieve the conditions for everybody to be themselves. I know I'm dreaming again. You know, I
I'm
that's the
typing.
yeah. You know,
Where do
thinking
others come
about.
from? Someone's typing, where do others come from? Like that reminds me, we played the game Le Grand Jeu, and one of the um, good players, he built a consumer factory. I think that's where most adults come from these days.
But that's exactly the idea, that's the fact that, like, before the I mean, all the enlightenment, all this idea of separation, of having an object. I was reading about this music history. I think I shared it with you already. about the fact that the being an experience, and the fact that suddenly all the consumer culture has been built on creating artificial lack for people, so people feel they need something. It has been written by historians, that it has been decided that we're going to make people feeling they are lacking something.
Yeah, I was talking about something like that with a friend in a party last weekend, and he was telling me like, what is adolescence? And I was like, no, I don't know what is that. Is when they started to think that they need something, that they are lacking for something. So you get absorbed for that imaginary lacking of whatever fits. Yeah,
So,
funny.
but you said something within the vacuum, Jean. What do you think of that? Because within the vacuum said, beyond tools, we want to achieve globally a state and the conditions that every individual can be themselves again. Like, if that is self-sovereignty, if that is whatever that means, being yourself, obviously, we assume that within the vacuum sees that as the most harmonious state that is possible. Is that,
Yeah, well,
but that is not what Jean means with liberal individualistic being self, right? So these are fundamentally two different worldviews when you leave the individual to be, whether they're
Yes,
going
of
to,
course, of course.
be overburdened by the weight of the world on their shoulders, or whether they realize, hey, the earth is underneath my feet and it's gonna carry me.
But it's
That's what I see, like these, when you think of an individual and what state self-sovereignty can put them in.
it, when it comes from Web3, it comes from a financial culture. So
Yeah.
it means owning your own assets, whatever, own data, etc. But of course, it was a relief to hear that self-sovereignty is also the experience of being. Then I also think that being is not a static state, that I see very much that actually we are much more connection and flow between everything than, that this idea of just being as an ideal state to reach is a delusion. That is also with all the way we are thinking, because we think about being perfect, everything. And that's that's what you read, in critical sociology, French philosophers and all these kind of things. That's this idea of having so anyway, so
Yeah,
even this.
that's like a very French version of existentialism. Like, we don't need to be perfect, because if not, we are like this existentialist thinking, super pessimistic, right? And we come back to the idealism, individualism thing, and that's a rabbit hole itself. Because we as humans, maybe we don't need to achieve that. But even if we don't have that ideal will of this, what I would call self-actualization and not self-sovereignty, because if that's like a tricky word itself. But if we see self-sovereignty as improving internally and externally to achieve that kind of self-actualization, I would say that's like a better word to achieve that. We will see like this resilience is happening in that we are, and maybe not only in one of the crypto flowers like political ideology or financial structures, but it's more from the human-centered way, right? Achieving this internally, externally, and then in our systems as well, because that is interdependent. And if the individualistic thing is like winning, it's because our systems are designed after the Industrial Revolution as well, and incentivizing that. It is not only the financial or the technological or the IT thing, but the whole industrial thinking.
Mhm.
So it's like this is
Yes.
self-actualization in a way.
And
Mhm.
and and also, totally, Letty, and also the if we talk about looking for value, where the real value is where all the mistakes are. You know, that's the place to look for it. You know, where is the mistake, there's the value, because at this stage of humanity, we have to have the maturity to look back and extract the whole value of all of our mistakes. And
Mhm.
we now know that it's not about the system, it's about the human condition. It's how
Mhm.
to use tools to improve human conditions, to be able and to allow the next generations to be themselves, you know, to be what they are when they were born, you know, like.
Mhm.
And so yeah, the value is there, you know, is in the mistakes, is in all the errors that we have through history. So we are very rich right now.
Yes, I think we are, and I think like really we are as humans and the planet and the systems. They are like reaching out and crying. We need to self-actualize ourselves, and sometimes it's us like falling down into this all ideological thinking and all patterns and all things. Like we are not given away in the space to do that. Like falling off
Mhm.
these like super all philosophical questions that have been really solved, but we are coming down again to the same struggle, right? And it's like us
Mhm.
don't live in the space to happen. So that's like the knowledge information bubble, like within the vacuum was saying, like we are like trying to know and to read so much, and we are like don't living in being, and that's why I think our fundamental flow.
What did you say? Just the last sentence. Sorry, Letty.
Yeah, it's like too much information does not lead us to wisdom, and sometimes overthinking and thinking that we
Mhm.
will know more, we will be achieving more or a more ideal state is not letting us live and be and be the essence of what we want to achieve.
Mhm.
Mhm.
C- c- I would, like I would add to this idea of self-actuation that maybe it's the self that we need to question, because when you go within the self, actually you do connect outside. So it's really, to me, it's really important to think about all this in dynamics and movement, and not in reaching to some static state, the way we think about it. So I
Mhm.
would
Mhm.
go
Yeah,
with this.
that's totally true. And in the essence, in the being, there's dynamic flows as well. So maybe the information and being this in this research space, it's like when you are in this being, there is flow and there is nothing as well. So it's like this dance between what is flow, what is movement, and what is there. That is always there, and it was before you came here.
Yeah, yeah, I would totally subscribe to this in this dialectical concept of the self. There is constant development and constant motion or movement. So basically, it's more a self which is an aggregate which has, in essence, no atomic self. So it's actually the opposite of the sovereignty of neoliberalism, where the individual is this hardcore being that needs to take care of itself and their family and not care about anything else. So it's the opposite of this way of thinking, of seeing a sovereign self as a aggregate or a kind of um, how do you say, like a point of intensity where certain things flow together, which creates a sense of a false self, which then kind of forgets that it's just kind of a circumstance of being which is not made up of something like solidly existing in itself. And how it actualizes itself in like Hegelian stuff, which is pretty idealist, but then a lot of others have kind of like rethought it as a kind of like materialist or even scientific movement. There it actually happens through the social link by actually connecting to another seemingly being, although that also is a kind of aggregate of kind of circumstantial
Yeah.
flows, you could say. I don't know the word for it because it goes a bit beyond language. And there is actually where it can exist. In itself, by itself, it doesn't really exist in that sense. It finds its existence through the social connection. But that's a kind of like yeah, another way of thinking about this kind of forms of sovereignty, because often it's kind of misinterpreted in a more leftist or most social
Mhm.
environment. You say sovereignty, they're like, "Who the fuck do you are? Like the queen or the
Mhm.
like Mother Superior in the monastery, or like what do you think you are? Like, are you the Pope or what's wrong with you? Like, be social."
Mm.
So often sovereignty in that sense it's seen as a kind of like, yeah, like what Jan said, something very individualistic or neoliberal or kind of conceding to the enemy. So that's kind of like where sovereignty in itself, I personally kind of link it to more liberal figures in America, like Henry David
Mm.
Thoreau, and this kind of more anarchic way of doing. But still, it has a connection more to a kind of liberalist or a kind of more financially speculative side of thinking. While
Mm.
on the continental European left, or more towards a common way of being, it often kind of, yeah, for me it's a very provocative term because it's not a
Right.
popular term to use. Like it's even seen sometimes as a kind of very right way or very problematic way of thinking about things.
Okay. Okay. I was also just googled, okay, what is it, right? And then I agree, like the words possessing supreme political power and definitely, authority within a limited sphere. Like actually, all the things are like, oh no, it's horrible. But but when I look at, okay, what are we actually talking? Like, go back into the context of token engineering and the substrate we're talking about, or we want to contextualize all of this in, are blockchains. The most limited sphere we could come up with first century computing. And um, yeah, I mean, it is a global computer, right?
Yeah.
And it has the potential, right, to um, at least with respect to other like sovereign states and what have you, like that space that we could be and would be then program our values in and exchange and interact, not in the physical space, but when we contextualize all of this back into that very limited space, that's what it is. Uh, and it can, like, that substrate is it doesn't need mm, permission, like, or you have to shut down internet, and then even then there could be networks that are still running independently and so on. Like, I think when we need to connect, or I guess that limited sense still is relevant, just because we're in token engineering commons, and we want at the end of the day contextualize, at least partially, um, in that space. Mm. And again, like, all political views are mixed in there. I don't know. When I look at crypto space or crypto Twitter, it's like the most horrible place and the most interesting place. Like, it's yeah.
Yeah, from me, there is exactly where the ethical question comes to the foreground, especially in token engineering. If it's a sovereign idea, how do you deal with extreme ideologies which also are accessing financing if there is no
Mm.
way of kind of, if there's a horrible use of capital for certain purposes? can be extreme ideologies, can be kind of splinter guerrilla groups, can also be just very oppressive states. Like, how does this deal with ethics? I think of like Twitter shutting down Trump for a while, which I thought was really, really funny. But for sure, there will be other figures like Trump which won't be able to be shut down because of this and will use this as arguments for a populist discourse. So that's kind of where I'm thinking about the ethics of it. It's like how
Yeah.
to deal with it in this kind of systems design, like how to create a trustless system, a permissionless system, have like too much 4chan boards or I don't know all these networks, but like yeah, also regarding sexuality and like the age of consent and like there's a huge field of like things which are very problematic to just leave open on a blockchain.
But it's already the case. I mean, I think we should look at the blockchain as a continuum of the existing financiarization of everything. This is why the article I just shared earlier with Dance and Finance is super interesting, the way he's looking at it, because it's a bit before the generalization of the blockchain, and you just see that we are in the continuity of it. So, and when you see, for example, you know, all these spaceships investors, they are making decisions that should be like democratic decision, but individually, because they have the money.
Yep, and but I was also reading the article from Douglas Rushkoff. Let's call it the survival of the richest, escape fantasies of the tech billionaires.
Yeah.
So they are, you know, it's general. It's a they are screaming for logic, for make sense of things. You know, there's a lot of confusion and distortion out there. So everybody, you know, is like waiting for the end. I don't know what is that the narrative all the time, especially from people from the 80s. You know, it's like no, everything has to has to stop. But reality is that you know the nature tends to improve themselves so and
Yeah.
stabilize
Yeah.
systems so,
That's really and I also want to say like mm, again, I think the question about ethics, trustless, permissionless, and what about extreme ideologies? That question can be again viewed from the perspective that within the vacuum shares.
yeah but
When you
it's
say it's about the human condition, not the system.
yeah exactly and they all have a very probably very uh a good point in their from their perspective, you know, like they believe that they are right, of course, and and that's why we are claiming, you know, the world is claiming for a sense of logic in everything, you know, is and we have so many science and everybody's looking in their own branch and is not connected with the other, and you know we have all this confusion going on going and it is because we don't have a common language to be able
I lose you.
to understand what we are and flow in that direction.
I think like I was taking notes and the last three lines and we're coming to an end and really getting back to the point. It's yes, this technology is telling like no, we are literally presented with this, right? The godlike technology, if you will. And
Yeah,
it is in my hands, like it is and with self-sovereignty, it means like and again, I'm so sorry if it sounds too cheesy, but like literally, this is the understanding of being the change that you want to see, right? And you can say, oh, but everywhere else there's so many bad people. Well, you might not change them, but this tech allows you to, right, take care of your human condition And then also it allows you to consensually connect globally in networks of value with others who share those values. Number one, like there is some kind of constant branching away from, potentially harmful. And again, everyone, it's like Ready Player One, play again. Right? You have the choice. Even if everyone else, is looking at how to survive apocalypse, you can really just stand and connect with others who actually agree with this point of view. That's just I want to maybe if you can come share a couple of closing remarks there.
Yeah, maybe a few things like regarding the apocalypse. Capitalism needs a crisis, so this kind of the three main religions have this kind of projection of a kind of life hereafter, and then there's apocalypse and final judgment. But in the capitalist sense, that's kind of the best way to produce value because you come into a crisis state, which means like you spend and you consume. So let it happen, like really let it go. I would just say like, don't worry, we're all gonna die. Like nothing to worry about.
That's for sure.
But then on the ethical closing remarks, like first thing, like where does tech recorder get recorded? Because I want to know where to find myself. Then the second thing, yeah, if it's about like financial flows, like okay, the banks and the governments, they're corrupt. There's so much criminal things going on. So if there is a kind of token engineering system, like where does this kind of money and human trafficking, weapons trafficking, all this kind of illegitimate forms of prostitution and human trafficking, like the horrible things of the
Yeah.
world, where
Yeah.
that money gets laundered, that's where kind of a lot of these
Yeah.
kind of systems are very vulnerable. And then
Mhm.
another kind of remark in this kind of metaverse sense, which looks like the new Disneyland, and it looks like super juvenile somehow. Like, it's a very weird space. Like, I don't know if I would have a kid if I would trust it to be playing with those things because you don't really know what's on the other side there. So there's like a lot of concerns there that I have. So yeah, that's
Well, we survived Second Life, so.
Yeah.
yeah,
I,
but I
I,
think it goes a step further if I'm in a second life where actually my identity is also kind of my bank account and I'm kind
Yeah,
of
you're right.
avatar, which is kind of sellable as a commodity. It goes
Okay,
very far that my identity or
basically,
as a teenager
you.
that my sense of self is like robbed or appropriated or just commodified. It's kind of a big
Mhm,
step psychologically speaking.
mhm. So you also go to like the whole identity, and then basically having all those identities connected on chain and so on, and what is the implication thereof?
Yeah, in short, like in the first industrial revolution, like as a guy, like my extension was supposed to have like a vehicle, like a nice Chevy or something, or a car. Then it became like a smartphone as the most identitarian object, and maybe in the
Mhm.
future it's gonna be this kind of meta version of myself, like how I look on the kind of metaverse distributed version of my social profile. That's kind of how I'm seeing it. Of like to which community do I belong if I'm kind of developing a social, like when I become a teenager, when I'm not seeing my parents as my role models, but I look for my contemporaries, like where do I find
Mhm.
those things? So that's kind of like my pseudo theory about it.
I love it actually. Very, very convincing. That's really very
Cool.
interesting.
So if you want, I
I
took
would love to
note. Yeah,
closing.
go ahead.
I have been kind of meditating for the last 10 minutes, and I would like to share that the being and the essence contains all the things you have been talking about in these last 10-15 minutes. And as long as we try to self-actualize in the sense of the bigger self and not being in our human conditioned mind, all things that have been expressed in the last 20 minutes don't express any problem in the bigger picture. So it's like taking the self-responsibility of being the change we want to be, acting like that, speaking like that too, and expressing the bigger mission we are doing here, not only the philosophical dialectical way, but also in the being and in the essence of being.
And to add to that, knowing what change is desirable, or like
Yes.
literally just be careful what you wish for, like what could go wrong kind of
But
ideas are a lot.
Okay. I would add that what is important is to remain that today in the present, not in the future. There are always some, we need each of us to be aware that there's some ethical concern, that we need, there's some problem, that some things that are not going well, and we need to open our eyes. And also, I don't know if fight is the right word, but this idea that one day will be perfect, to me, it might be problematic if in not fighting or not really being aware of the fact that we need to build the tools for the things that are not going well, because it will always be. We need to be the tools for ethics and all this.
Yeah, but there's also levels of maturity, and we can achieve certain level where some programs that are running in societies can just stop to being useful. It's like the blockchain itself. Like blockchains, like Buckminster Fuller says, like just build a new and better technology and declare the older obsolete. It's what's going on with the blockchain. Yeah, it's a little bit about that.
So that is, I'm taking for the cue for next time, which would be done a couple of times later. Basically saying, okay, but today we need this facilitation and tools, even this exchange, for example, and then saying, okay, and there will be, or there are levels of maturity. I think maybe this whole the diagram could help us there, or going back to spiral dynamics kind of model to help us focus our discussion. But then that I would like to take on to actually help us, or let us exchange on this phrase, which is like Jean, that's my riddle. Self-sovereign individuals govern well together. And that's one sentence I stumbled upon in Kernel in 2020. And pretty soon thereafter, I stumbled upon it, something similar in Invisible Economy in Dada, the art collective that I'm still working with. And there they have this autonomy on one side and interdependence on the other. And maybe I just prepare those in the end of today's notes, share them. And would be great if next time we pick this up, that we go into those areas. And feel free to add any links, any afterthoughts in the in the agenda if you can, because that's basically the curated. But if you just share things in Discord also, I'll see to that we pick them up, because I really like this, where this is going, and the exchange with all of you is so insightful, and I truly believe that we can make or create something of use for us and for others as well in this discourse. So that would be the goal of this whole course in self-sovereignty. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. It was great. Thank you.
Take good care. Bye bye.